What day did the service guy go to your house?
I've been working at Austin Energy for 18 years.
Now I've worked at Austin Energy for over 12 years.
I'm coming up on my 7th year.
11 years now.
I've worked at Austin Energy for 7 years.
I've worked at Austin Energy 12 years.
I've been with Austin Energy 20 years this year.
Austin Energy is 125 years old, and it's a joy for me to be part of that because I am an Austinite. I've worked here for 21 of those years.
Austin Energy is 125 years old. It's been part of the identity or part of the culture of the city of Austin for Austin's rise.
Can you believe being in this business as a city entity and to do it for 125 years? Unheard of.
We are community owned, and because of that, we provide value not only to our customers, but to all the communities that we serve.
We're not some private company that can do, whatever we want. We're part of the city of Austin, and the customers from the city of Austin have expectations of us.
You meet so many different people, the customers from all different walks of life from all over the world.
It gives me a good feeling because you're helping a paying customer out. We're in service. We're here for the customer.
I feel like we're partners with the city because we are the city.
We're a strong pillar, we're stable, we bring innovation to the community, and we're here to stay.
Started out as a meter reader. Was advanced to meter service rep lead. Today we got new customers that just started new service, so we're just here to make sure the water and the electricity is turned on for them whenever they move in. They like the power being on, and they're going to probably be a lifetime customer. The fact that the city's grown so much, it keeps us very busy.
If you go back to Austin before electricity, life was difficult. It was a little bit of a pioneer or frontier town. And so people had to carry the water by hand, they had to pump the water by hand. Everything was done by hand. We had all these manual chores.
Nobody really had electricity. We are so surrounded by electric lights all the time. People have no conception of how dark it was just every night. There was a little bit of street lighting from gas lights from the 1870s, but that was about it.
Cities with bustling populations and industrial demand and a lot of enterprise, those were the desirable places, and those are the first places a lot of private utilities went. Austin was not at the top of the list of places to go.
There were so few people here back when it started that no big utility from Dallas or Houston would come here and build an electric utility plant, so we did it ourselves.
A man named Alexander Penn Woolridge, who was a banker and later owner of the Statesman newspaper, he and others began to lay plans for how to develop the city. That's when Woolridge and some of his allies pushed what would be a big industrial development project for the city. And Woolridge hatched the scheme that the city would finance building a dam. And this is where it's really important for the history of Austin Energy, of the electric utility. Under Austin's charter, the city couldn't finance public works for industrial development, but could finance ones for utilities. And that project was the most important thing in Austin. The dam was completed in 1893. The powerhouse in 1895.
It was the biggest dam in the world. It was featured on the cover of Scientific American. Today it's like a baby dam, but at the time it was huge.
People were delighted to have a lake. There had been no lakes at all in Central Texas. Now they had this beautiful lake. And that was also the foundation of the water and electric power utility owned and controlled by the city.
And so the opportunity of electricity was that it could do some of these chores for us. It could pump the water for us. It could light the cities for us so that we could stay out after dark.
So they wanted to provide electric street lighting. The famous Moonlight Towers were erected around the city, and they spread the light over a wide area.
They didn't have street lights. They had these big towers. That was our town lighting.
They're very tall, probably 3 times as tall as a regular street light that you may see even on the road. They also have a halo effect because you wanted the light to be distributed and hopefully provide some safety for individuals who wanted to walk at night. and they won't fall because they got sturdy iron. They're up there for a very long time frame, and even the winds are not going to knock them down or anything else. So they're very secure too. And they would come on roughly at dusk, and at dawn they would go off.
These light bulbs were not unique to Austin. They were used in cities like Detroit and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and other places. So it was a common thing for cities to have these moon towers. Austin was different. As other cities got to better technologies, they replaced their moon towers with the newer technology. And Austin didn't really quite get around to that for quite a while. And then by then we got used to the moon towers and kind of liked them. So now they're one of our features and something we celebrate. So we've adopted it as a part of our Keep Austin Weird brand.
There's a new fiesta in the making as we speak. It's out at the Moon Tower.
Austin stuck with the tower lights long enough that they became a nostalgic object of interest to people.
They were beginning to age. The age had caught up with them. And we actually put one of our managers in charge of that project to get it completed, to put those back the way they were originally built. That process took years, 5, 6, 7 years to complete. And they are still lit up to this day, hopefully in better shape than when they were originally built.
Over the years, we started out with 31 towers. We're down to 17. Still functional as a lighting source. They were registered as a Texas historical landmark. Now it's actually a historical piece that's being preserved. We're replacing the bulbs to LEDs because they're more efficient and they also have a longer lifespan. The customers are very, in the neighborhood, you can see them coming out, but they're very appreciative that we're restoring the towers and make them safe, but also preserving something that they appreciate in their communities.
The city was really buzzing along in 1893, and importantly, put in electric streetcar lines.
We keep hearing from people like Elon Musk that someday transportation will be electrified. But in fact, transportation was electrified 125 years ago. The original modes of transportation for a city like Austin were horses and electric streetcars.
It was very successful in Austin. You would ride the electric streetcar for a nickel fare, and that was the way people got around town.
When I was at UT, they didn't have buses, we had streetcars. I think it cost a nickel. I never did have a car when I was in school. If the weather permitting, every weekend, took a bus to Barton Springs and went swimming and sunbathing. I always worked real hard to get the best tan in town.
The electric streetcar remained just central to life in Austin from the 1890s until at least the 1920s and 30s, when it began to decline with competition from automobiles. So the dam worked fairly well at first. When the river was flowing well, great. But then they had a drought, the water level behind the dam fell, and you couldn't generate any power. But then too much rain came in the spring of 1900. On a Sunday, with huge crowds of people there to see this massive flow of water over the dam. It was like Niagara, except bigger. When suddenly people heard a loud crack, and a middle chunk of the dam was simply pushed downstream. So, it was a complete turning point for the city. Were they going to abandon the municipal utility? The city council voted, we're going to keep a municipal power plant. We're going to buy a steam-powered plant and keep running it, which they did. And the citizens of the city in the next election backed them up on that. Instead of being owned by private investors, is owned by the city. And that's very different from Houston or Dallas or most other places, where a policy is set by a board of directors who are answerable to their investors and not to the citizens or the ratepayers.
Austin Energy is our greatest asset. We own it and it provides all our electricity, and it's answerable to the people of Austin who are the owners.
The upshot is that Austin is one of relatively few cities that has a municipally owned utility and has had relatively low rates throughout its 125-year history, and had a sense that the people of Austin controlled their own fate. Really a watershed period in the city's history.
After World War II, as people moved south and west from the Northeast, Austin grew. Austin started to become a destination for people from other states to move to for economic opportunity. And this really came forward in a very visible way in the 1960s and 1970s, where Austin was changing with the growing university, the growing post-World War II population boom was still happening, the economy was shifting, everything was happening. Austin captured a lot of those elements.
When the community was able to start using air conditioning, that made it more livable to be here.
There was a concerted effort to get into economic development opportunities that would provide the cleanest type industries that it could. And I believe one of the first entities that came here in the 60s was IBM. 3M came later, Traco was another one, and then there was Motorola.
With that growth, we had to have more supply, we had to build out infrastructure.
Then we had Semitech. Semitech was this consortium for semiconductor manufacturing technology. Also MCC, the Microelectronics and Computer Corporation, another consortium. And this created Austin as a center of technology. As the internet revolution arrived, Austin was one of the leaders of that. So Austin continues to grow, and all the services of the city have had to grow alongside it, including the utility.
There are 3 electrical grids in North America. There's the East, the West, and Texas.
Texas is its own grid, and it's called ERCOT, Electric Reliability Council of Texas. It operates it all.
So we don't really electrically serve our customers directly. We generate electricity, sell it into the market, and then buy it back out as needed to serve our customer load.
And the revenues that we receive for that generation is used to offset the costs that we incur from purchasing everything from ERCOT. It's expensive to live in Austin, and if we can do our part to ensure that our customers have reasonable, low-cost electricity, that's a real benefit for them and the community.
I used to tell people Austin's a great place to live if you can afford to pay for air conditioning. And that's what started my interest. I was always concerned with residential rates.
It's in the 1970s that a citizens commission was set up to supervise a utility.
Decades later, that Citizens Commission was renamed the Electric Utility Commission. And I had the honor to serve on the Electric Utility Commission with Shudde Fath. She's 104 years old.
I was appointed from day one, so I served 40 years. The rates should be more fair to the people. Now, I fought battles on electric rates, good, bad, and indifferent, but
She's been a remarkable watchdog on utility policy and utility management in the city and really throughout the state.
Austin Energy gave a nice little retirement reception for me. Jackie Sargent said, well, we don't have any 40-year pins, and so she gave me 2 20-year pins, and I still have them. I'm so glad to have them.
I've lived here in Austin since 1970, which means I've seen some changes. I think Austin Energy is a giant benefit to the city. Their goal is to make sure that power is efficient and reliable. And it's not going to be reliable if they have trees shorting out primary power lines because trees do what trees do, and that is they grow.
I think if we just take the top one, the bottoms are okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I work for Austin Energy in the Austin Energy Forestry section. The idea is you don't want vegetation growing into the wire that can either push the wire together and cause problems or fall and break and land in the wire and tear the wire down.
Green trees, there's that moisture in there, so it's a natural conductor. The tree will catch on fire and it will burn the power line down. It's a hazard to us because we can't necessarily see our conductor. It's a hazard to our tree trimmers because they're actually closer to the conductors. There's a bunch of different scenarios why trees are hazardous around the utility world.
This is an urban area, but we're very proud of having a lot of trees. We want trees, but we can't have trees in some places. We had an ice storm This tree had a branch that went all the way up over that top and killed the power for, I don't know, 150, 200 people. I like to be a decent neighbor, and I don't want to be the cause of other neighbors having their power lost.
Yeah, they want to talk to the wires.
When customers see that we really have put some thought into it, it's not just we want to come in and cut all the trees down. Having the certifications like we have, like being a certified arborist, it gives the customer some reassurance that I have some training and some background.
I did not have to pay a nickel extra for Austin Energy to come. As a matter of fact, Austin Energy is a hell of a deal.
You're working your hardest, and people are coming out and asking, when's my power going to be on, when's my power going to be on? And then when the power does come on at 2 o'clock in the morning and people are outside still saying, hey, thanks, appreciate you coming out and taking care of that tonight. We didn't know you guys worked, these kinds of hours.
We've done so much in the space of energy efficiency and building codes and green building that our actual average customer's consumption has declined significantly.
In the 70s, we went on the kick of energy efficiency, so that we don't have to go ahead and build these big power plants anymore. That was the beginning of it, was the 70s.
We are able to do programs and service offerings that if we weren't a municipally owned utility, we wouldn't be able to do, such as our energy efficiency programs, the rebate programs that we have.
Participated in the conservation program since the first green energy was offered 20 years ago. The level of innovation with different kinds of conservation processes is very high with Austin Energy.
We have utility scale wind projects, we have utility scale solar, we have rooftop solar, we have community solar, we have biomass and biogas. Our community is well educated. People just want us to be out there on that cutting edge doing those things.
Austin Energy has been a leader in renewable energy, wind and solar, and plug-in vehicles.
We have over 800 public charging ports that are available for the public to use to charge their vehicles. We try to make it easy.
There's batteries, hopefully one day will be the ultimate thing that we'll want, if we can ever find a way to put large amounts of kilowatt hours in a battery so you can call on it when you need it the most and be able to shut down some of the plants.
There's always new technology and something new to learn every day, for sure.
Innovation is in our DNA.
This system is a chilled water system. Austin was one of the first cities in Texas to actually have a building with a chilled water system for air conditioning. For buildings in our region, 40 to 50% of the building's annual electric consumption goes to driving its air conditioning system. And so what we've done at Austin Energy with district cooling is make chilled water around 40 degrees and send it out to our customer buildings, which is used for air conditioning and cooling their buildings. Chilled water systems are much more energy efficient than the standalone direct expansion systems that we have in our homes and smaller buildings.
As we've seen more buildings go up in the downtown area, we've been asked to provide more services, so we're expanding and adding chiller plants. And then we have these loops of chilled water that go throughout the city of Austin and also up at Mueller and at the Domain. We also worked with Austin Community College up at the Highland campus to provide them with chilled water for that new campus.
We create the kind of scale that allows us to economically provide superior energy efficiencies and reliability and quality with regard to the water. This facility uses a lot of electricity, and by virtue of the fact that we run during off-peak electric hours, we use green energy that is generated from West Texas wind.
We're just trying to keep up with the high demands of Austin growing. We got a lot of new subdivisions, and we're just coming in here setting transformers for these new homes out here. Every day is a different day. We hop around from job site to job site. Keeps you on your toes. Every morning we'll have a little safety briefing. We get a game plan in the shop. We head out to the job site.
Nowadays in new construction, everybody wants to go underground. We try to put all our new power lines underground.
Go ahead.
And today we were pulling in underground primary cable. We were pulling that in from transformer to transformer. That way we can get everything energized for the customer. It's usually safer. It's visually more pleasing for the customer for sure.
My favorite kind of project would be new residential. You come by a few months later and then you have families living in that subdivision that you were part of.
Wood. No, you don't sag anything on the outside arm first. Sag the center first.
We're constantly trying to evolve with the times, everything that's coming in new.
When I was general manager, where would you suspect was the first place I went to learn this business? I went right out to the ones who climbed the poles. Those are the unsung heroes that nobody ever sees.
We have training yard, for our up-and-coming linemen that are in this apprenticeship program.
With the newer generations coming in, it's important for us to keep them on top of their training to pass on the skills, keep these next levels coming up to speed with.
Swing to the center of the pole, then you can reach over and pin this one. Okay, right there, now catch your stuff.
Well, I mean, this isn't stuff you can learn in the classroom.
Smooth bend when you come in on that junction.
As y'all seen out here today, it's a lot of learning how to balance yourself on the poles, work with your tools.
Take one and ask him to hold the hand line.
On a daily basis, we install new infrastructure and install new transformers, install new wires, maintain existing infrastructure that we have that's just aging.
This is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, top 10.
You don't have the skill level right now to sag a three-phase pole correctly with one.
I mean, we're dealing with electrical hazards, your ground hazards. So they've also got to pay attention to all the hazards around them with the electric and the equipment hazards. Not to mention the terrain, the weather.
We do emergency work. We are on standby. We are part of the mutual aid. Anytime those disasters hit, in any way that we can help, that's what we like to do.
When I was younger, I remember seeing the linemen during lightning storms, anticipating that they're going to get the power back on and watching them work in such a dangerous situation to make sure that we have electricity.
I know you probably just see the person up there working with a lot of monitoring going on. So every person has another person's back. Everyone knows their job, they're very experienced linemen, so they know exactly what they're doing and what their role is.
The things that we've been losing a lot of with retirees and people moving on to different parts of our industry here. So we try to retain that knowledge. So if you find an older lineman out in the field, he's obviously seen a lot and he's got a lot of skills and things to pass on to this newer generation. So we're like wine, we get better with age.
When I think about the future of Austin Energy, I think of it from the perspective of serving children in the community.
And then this gentleman's gonna come over and he's gonna tap the end.
We go out and do school presentations, actually in classrooms. I think it's an opportunity to really encourage them to get involved in science and math and get them excited about it.
The Science Fest that Austin Energy helps to promote is really important because it helps to focus on STEM education in our community schools.
Started thinking about where can I get other resources to make ethanol, and that's where I thought about plants.
And we need people wanting to study those areas because that's the next workforce that we have.
So why not use the sun? That's how I came up with the project for a solar-powered portable USB charger.
So I figure that eventually we're gonna have this pool of all these kids that are interested in science and math, and hey, Austin Energy would be a great place for them to work. I think that's a great contribution to the future.
If you want to be a scientist when you grow up, it could eventually help you become a scientist. It's just a really cool fair.
I would say the COVID crisis has affected the work I do because I cannot go out and be physically in the classroom. So we've had to adapt virtually. Austin Energy is trying to find creative ways to get things done. There is still a high need for electricity.
Some vegetation, so there are trees that are encroaching our line.
With COVID-19, we had to change our practices. We run 2 centers with approximately 300 agents who answer the phones. Our utility contact center and the Austin 311. We had to make sure that we were taking care of our employees, making sure that they were safe, and we moved practically over 97% of the entire operation at home. Our customers are really enjoying it because it seems seamless to them. It's really about people-to-people connections. They're talking to employees that are from this community. And that's one thing that we don't lose sight of. As a public power utility, we are integrated into the life of this community.
Going over some safety hazards. We're gonna have trip hazards, uneven ground. The bulbs are glass, so be careful. Broken glass. You guys working overhead.
There's been a Zilker tree on the Moonlight Tower for 53 years, so it's part of a tradition, and it officially starts the holiday season.
The way I really became aware of Austin Energy as a child was through the Zilker Christmas tree. This tree is a moon tower lit up with all sorts of lights. And you could see this from miles away because it would just sort of dominate over the landscape. You'd have like the tower of the University of Texas at Austin, the Capitol building, and then the Zilker tree was the other tall thing. It just looked beautiful.
The Zilker tree is 155 feet tall, so it's no small feat to install the lights, and the work starts months in advance. And there are 3,300 lights.
But the genius was the man that figured how to space, especially the yellow bulbs moving up one socket to where it's spiral.
This is a City of Austin tradition, and we'd always do it, I believe, right after Thanksgiving, and let it stay to Christmas and maybe even New Year, then we'd take it down. We would have a celebration, invite people to come. We'd pick someone within the community to plug the lights in, and then it all lights up. It gives an opportunity for your customers, people who live here, the ones that pay the bills, to come and celebrate. Let's kick off the Christmas season, the holiday season at the end of the year, and let's light up Zilker Park to do it.
It's a way to give thanks to the people that we work with every day, this amazing community in which we're fortunate to live.
My hope for the next 125 years for Austin Energy is that our employees will be recognized for all of their efforts to keep the lights on. Our employees are the pillar of this organization.
Working for Austin Energy is probably the best job I've had in my life.
They really look out for not just the customer, but also their employees.
Working for Austin Energy for me is special because it's a family.
There you go.
It's the best job in the world.
This community depends on us. Austin has been consistently one of the fastest growing cities, and it's not stopping. This is a place that people want to be. As Austin has grown, so has the utility.
The legacy for Austin Energy, it's going to be longer than 125 years. I think this utility is going to be in business for a long time. I don't think the citizens will ever let this particular responsibility go someplace else because we control our own destiny. That's the bottom line.